Now, earlier this year, countries around the world actually counted on the Serum Institute of India, which produces 60% of the world's vaccines each year, as a lifeline to supply them with COVID-19 jabs. Now, the Serum Institute is struggling to meet even the vaccine demands of its home country as India battles its worst ever wave of COVID-19 infections. The Institute released a statement yesterday saying it wouldn't be able to fulfill its obligation to the COVAX facility until the end of 2021. What does this mean to countries within Africa that are depending on these vaccines to build herd immunity? Joining us via Zoom is Dr. John Amwesi. He lectures at the Global Health Department School of Public Health at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi. Now, the Serum Institute is unable to fulfill its obligation to COVAX till the end of the year. Doc, help us with this. Does that rule out our chances of building herd immunity in Ghana?
Well, thank you very much for that question, and a good afternoon to all your listeners and to everyone. I think these are really important issues that we need to discuss. Because someone coughs somewhere and somebody else catches a cold. So definitely what's happening in India, the way the virus is ravaging, the B.1.167 variant is ravaging the country, has implications for us, not only in terms of risk for infections and spread, but also the availability of the vaccine. And you've, I think, pretty much said it all. That COVAX will be severely limited because of the lack of supply from Serum Institute of India. Even taking care of their own cells is a challenge for them. And so COVAX is going to be set back. Now, beyond COVAX being set back is also another major issue with COVAX, which is the components of COVAX. What really goes into COVAX, which is the vaccines and the kinds of vaccines. We have the AstraZeneca vaccine being the main vaccine that's being supplied through COVAX. Of course, there are other vaccines being supplied through COVAX, but the main one is the AstraZeneca. Now, with the Indian variant, the research shows clearly that the protective power of the AstraZeneca vaccine and other adenovirus vector-based vaccines is markedly reduced, both for risk of transmission and also the risk of infection, risk with a tool that could be potentially blunted on account of new variants. And one would say, better a blunt cutlass than your bare hands. But here we are with a situation where the tool may be blunt, but even that blunt tool is not being made available. And I think these are the issues we need to grapple with. I understand very well that Ghana has made very stringent efforts, and not only to look at COVAX, but also bilateral agreements and direct contact with other countries. It won't surprise me that the travels of the president might be related to all these negotiations, because it's important that, and we've said this several times, for us not to put our eggs in one basket, but really to spread ourselves as much as we can, explore all the possible sources of these vaccines and go for as much as we can. The reason why countries like Israel, the UK, and now the rest of Europe catching up are having such success is because they spread themselves across all the options that were available, and those that worked well, they picked. Those that didn't work too well, they dropped. We may not have the luxury of the finances to do advanced market commitments and bulk purchasing and so on and so forth, but there are countries that have stockpiles of these vaccines, and I know that Ghana has been really pushing the US and other countries to make available their stockpiles, which they don't even have registration for some of these vaccines. Like AstraZeneca is not yet registered in the US, but they have stockpiles of this. And I know there are stringent efforts to try to get these to Ghana. So remember, there's two things. One, the tool might be potentially blunt, and now that blunt tool is not even fully available. And we need to look for options and look for them fast.
Okay, so Doc, tell me very quickly, how effective do you feel this entire process of mopping up vaccines from other countries is going to be, especially considering that we're still dealing with, well, maybe earlier variants of the virus, and now we know that in other countries they are building their vaccines to suit different variants of the virus. Where does that leave us in terms of combating the coronavirus in Ghana?
Right. So let me just point this out, what the research shows. Even with the mRNA-based vaccines, which is the Pfizer, which is supposed to have 95% plus efficacy or effectiveness, if I should put it more technically correctly, it is reduced to about 75% in the face of the Indian variant. This is the risk of catching the virus and transmitting it. And it's even much lower effectiveness for the vector-based adenovirus vaccines like the AstraZeneca. So with that, the key would be to get as much of the now potentially blunt tool, if the Indian variant should take over, as quickly as possible, because it's about population dynamics. If you can get the greater majority of your population vaccinated, even with a tool that might be less effective than it used to be, it still gives you significant advantage. There may, however, be one saving grace, and research may help us to determine whether this saving grace does exist for us, which is the seroprevalence of SARS-CoV-2 in our population. Because the argument would be that if a good percentage of the population have already been exposed to the virus, then they would have the antibodies already, and your vaccination would only be topping up what is already existing in the system by way of antibodies. And so we may be in a good place. However, this saving grace is still a bit dampened by the fact that the Indian variant has been shown to even bypass naturally obtained immunity. It means that if you got COVID with the previous variants, you may not be, and you do have natural antibodies, you might not be so safe from the Indian variant. And recent news has shown that the Indian variant has been identified in Zimbabwe. It's beginning to spread fast. And it just shows you that Africa is at high risk. And therefore, Ghana, we need to act really fast, ramp up whatever efforts we are making. I understand there's a flurry of activity to secure vaccines. We really wish the team working on this the very best of success. Ghana has a track record of excellent negotiation skills internationally. I pray this comes through for us. We get our vaccines and deploy them as quickly as possible. At the same time, try to measure what our seroprevalence is, engage to what degree we might be protected or otherwise.
Now, I'd like to find out from you, we've been told that we're aspiring by October to have vaccinated some 20 million Ghanaians and achieve what has now come to be known as herd immunity. Are we overplaying that card of herd immunity? Now, this is the point to be made. The Seychelles, the most vaccinated country in the world, is having a severe outbreak now, despite having vaccinated about 62% of their population fully. They have a major outbreak there. So this whole bit about achieving herd immunity, will it deliver the sort of results we've seen in the likes of the UK?
Again, that's a really excellent question. In theory, vaccination should, well, if you do reach the levels which should give you herd immunity, it should deliver the protection that you need.
Okay, so what then differently? I mean, looking at the approach so far and what we've achieved up to this point in time, we're definitely not getting the sort of numbers we would have wanted to do on the back of what has happened with the Serum Institute of India. What more do you feel Ghana can do differently, finally, to ensure that the population we want to get vaccinated actually is vaccinated? Well, it appears we have lost Doc. Okay, so we do have Doc still with us. So, Doc, I just wanted to find out, finally, on the back of the answer you were delivering, that is if you had finished answering the last question, what else do you think Ghana can do differently to ensure that we get to the numbers we want to vaccinate by October?
Right. So sorry about that, the internet challenges. I'm hopeful you can still hear me. But if I heard you right, you're asking about what Ghana should be doing next. I was trying to point out that the emergence of variants is a major spanner in the works, and how this would impact on whatever gains are made from either vaccination drive or high seroprevalence levels is not very clear. However, the tool still cuts, the vaccine still works. So as I said, I likened it to you having a tool which is blunt, but it's better than still having your bare hands to grapple with. So let's have as much of that tool, because that's what we have available, as quickly as possible. The trick with vaccination is the speed thereof. The quicker you do it, the more effective it is, because it's a population level measurement. It's not just about vaccinating everyone or as many as possible, but it's about vaccinating as many people as possible, as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Amwesi. Dr. John Amwesi is a global health expert.